The Rough Drafts podcast is sponsored by Unicorn.com, the world's premier esports betting site. Bet on your favorite games like CSGO, Dota 2, and League of Legends, and earn Unicoins through successful bets, or use Unicorn's exclusive Connect program, where you can earn Unicoins just by playing some of your favorite games. Use your earnings to enter Unicorn's raffles for exciting prizes like Logitech peripherals or CSGO skins. So join Chase and Walter and prove who really is the esports gambling expert. Unicorn.com. Log on today.
Hello, Internet. This is Chase, RedShirtKing, Wassenar, and welcome to day 6 of our NA LCS Team-by-Team preview podcast series. We have talked about 5 teams so far. We are more than halfway through. We're turning that corner, and Riot is finally turning the corner on actually letting us know what these rosters are going to be. But we have them. It's late at night on a Thursday, but we have them, and we're going to talk about one of the more interesting developments that came out today, and that's going to be from a tribe called FlyQuest. And I can't think of anyone I'd rather have break all this down with me than my good friend and co-host, Walter Ceades Fedczuk. Walter, why are you even implying that this isn't a joke I've made way too often on this show?
I am. That's why I'm groaning and I'm sighing and I'm going, why did I agree to do a podcast about FlyQuest at 2 o'clock in the morning, East Coast time? Because you're just going to try and jam as many fun FlyQuest high moon puns into this, and I'm just going to want to kill myself. So, thanks for that. And thank you, Riot, for being so on top of your game that I have to record a podcast at 2 o'clock in the morning so it can go out tomorrow. So I tip my hat to all of you in the Riot NA esports office. I'm very happy. Very happy person.
I'm going to give you the same advice that I'm going to give their new signing, which is don't kill yourself or get yourself killed. And that's something that's been a problem for the frontline AD carry that has now joined the roster, WildTurtle.
The frontline AD.
To be fair, they do have a lot of other pieces on this roster. You have Balls in the top lane, Moon in the jungle, High is your mid laner. Alltech is still going to be around, it looks like, as a backup support, because TSM's statement on WildTurtle specifically says that he wanted a starting role. No reason to believe that that isn't going to be the case then, and that means your support is Lemon Nation. It's a reunion of a lot of these, even pre-Cloud9 games. We're getting into Quantic territory, folks. It's kind of exciting. Let's talk about FlyQuest as a whole before we get into everyone's favorite frontline AD carry. How do you feel about FlyQuest last split? Did you feel like the fact that they got to that third place match means that they well exceeded what we expected of them? Or was this about peaking at the right moment and kind of rolling the momentum from there?
So here's the thing. I feel like every analyst on the planet that thought about FlyQuest kind of had them pegged in that 6th, 7th territory. So obviously, hey, they ended up in the 3rd, 4th place match. They exceeded our expectations, technically. As a whole, they did what we expected them to do. They had a really good, strong start to the split. They came out on all cylinders. They were, a top 3 team for the majority of that early part of the split and then sort of faltered towards the end. And it was because they had this excellent synergy between their core 4. And I know we had a lot of questions about Moon, but Moon ended up being their best player, and he sort of filled the exact same role that Contracts did and excelled at it. And they really, once they realized Moon was kind of the primary wingman for High on this team, and that was what we thought was missing, was a secondary carry behind High, they really took off. It was just that when they started to get too cute with stuff. They started to understand that their mechanical deficiencies of the players not named High or Moon, they were like, okay, well, how do we get an advantage here? Oh, let's play double bruiser bot lane with Mordekaiser and Nautilus. And like, okay, like, yeah, I totally get that. That works. And then, oh, let's play double bruiser bot lane, but we're going to flex that Nautilus into the top lane and play Maokai bot lane, and that'll work. And I'm like, no. And then let's play Shaco jungle when it doesn't make any sense to play Shaco jungle. And I was like, I like the thought, but no. So at the end of the day, like, yeah, they kind of exceeded our expectations. They came out swinging. They came out running on all cylinders, and then they sort of tailed off to the end of the split, and they had a little spike again in the playoffs, so they could get to that third, fourth place match. And I know you, of all people, Chase, will just say, but Darshan, why Darshan? And we wouldn't be talking about FlyQuest exceeding expectations. So.
Of course I'm going to be saying Darshan, why Darshan? I feel the same way about this match that I do about the Splice Misfits match that I harp on all the time in Europe. This should have gone to CLG. And to be fair, and I'm going to give FlyQuest a whole bunch of credit here, they had to follow the play and play out to that final win condition. They had to win the game. Yes, they were able to take advantage of a big mistake, but they had to do enough that they could take advantage of that mistake. They had to be at a point where they'd won 2 maps prior to that point. So certainly it doesn't take away everything. But if we're going to act like FlyQuest were so much better than we thought, we're ignoring half of the split where they went from being really, really good, tied for the best record or maybe 1 loss behind for the first half of the split, and then went really, really bad for a good portion of the second half up until they kind of fought their way back in week 9 and secured that playoff spot over Immortals. There was a good chance if Immortals beats either of Team Liquid or Team Envious in week 6 of the NALCS, FlyQuest isn't in the playoffs. And no, I'm not over it. Hashtag rest in pieces, Lord Flame and my beloved Immortals team. But we do have a step forward for FlyQuest. We do have something where we can say tangibly, this is an upgrade on paper, right? Do we feel good about this WildTurtle signing? Is this something that you expected FlyQuest to look at as a position in which they'd want to make those efforts? Like, how do you feel about this move?
Absolutely. Like, AD Carry absolutely had to be the position that they went to go make changes, because Alltech is the easiest AD Carry to game plan around, because all you have to do is just threaten him. All you have to do is just get in his face. You don't have to throw a punch. You don't have to, have a weapon. All you have to do is, like, get in his face and just, like, aggressively, like, bark at him. It's like when players are taking, like, free throws and or it's like Lance Stevenson. All you need is Lance Stevenson to just get into his face and just, like, blow in his ear, or, like, untie his shoes, or, like, silly stuff like that. And it's just like, Altech's like, nope, peace, I'm out of this team fight. And you're like, wait a minute, like, they have no mana. What do you mean? Like, oh, but yeah, well, that Nautilus could have thrown 1 Dredge at me, and I didn't have heal, I had flash, but, I'm not caught. Like, he just seems like such a skittish player, and I'm sick of it. And I feel bad, because I constantly harp on this point, because he does have some moments where he goes absolutely off in fights. And because of the safe way he plays, he's able to skirt around the edge of these fights and pick up, these low health targets, and he can kite very, very well. But there are just absolutely some times where he just totally gives up when he's at full health, full mana, and has both summoner spells up, and you're just kind of like, dude, you're an AD carry. Like, you have to deal damage. You have to kill someone. Like, you're not a burst mage where you can go in, blow all your cooldowns, kill someone, and be like, all right, now I can peace out. Like, you're auto attack base. You have to do this. And I thought maybe some of these utility AD carries, Ashe, Varus, that kind of stuff would help him, because he could just throw out 1 ult, engage a fight, and he wouldn't really have to worry all that much about whether he's safe or not. But it just, at the end of the day, it just didn't really work out for him, and the team really, really, really relied on High and Moon to be the primary damage dealers. Going to WildTurtle, exact opposite issue. Like you said, this is the frontline AD carry. And I think we need to trademark this term, because it's sort of like the support carry position that Edward famously created, and all these kind of other things. You look at players, you're like, oh, that's the type of player he was. We had the suicide mid laner in Reggie, always playing Karthus and Kennen, and he was their primary gauge, suicide engage. That's kind of what you get from WildTurtle, but from the AD carry position. So I like that frontline carry namesake for him. He's not afraid to get into fights. He's not afraid to try and make that play. He's not afraid to get in front of his tanks and say, no, follow me forward. he will grab that flag from his dead comrade and charge into battle knowing that everyone else is dead and just go, nah, I got this, boys. And then he'll die and we all laugh at him and he's like, yeah, but you know what? I wasn't a chicken. I tried my hardest. And we go, oh, Turtle, I miss when you got a pentakill in your very, very first match because of that, because that was amazing.
Yeah, because for every time that you watch WildTurtle flash in the middle of nowhere and seemingly get himself killed because his team is nowhere near close enough to follow him, you have that moment where he flashed and like almost from melee range hit that Ash arrow to get the initiation his whole team could follow up on. It was one of the stupidest engages I've ever seen, but it worked.
And FlyQuest fell for it.
Yeah, and FlyQuest fell for it, and that's something where you have to look at. Maybe that's the moment FlyQuest looked at and said, "That's something
that's
that
what we need."
And to some extent, I think that's fair. I mean, I went back and forth on Alltech over the course of the season. He was a guy that I almost put on my All-Pro list for AD carry at the third team, which A, says that I really did not like the AD carry position in North America this last split, but B, when he's good, his moments are very good. He loses lane, which is a problem, and is something that consistently has held him back, and that's something that WildTurtle isn't going to have the same problem with.
Well,
but not as severe. When you're losing your lane by an average of 5 CS per 10 minutes, that's kind of a problem. Over the course of a full season, that's pretty significant. Cody's son at his worst was not quite that bad in lane. It was around that number. So it's a concern to me. But, and his KDA numbers are great. I call it cop syndrome when it comes to Alltech because he was the first guy to really be that I am going to make sure that I don't die. And when you look at my numbers, they will always look good. But, I mean, you look at damage per minute, right? Alltech, 494. That is below average among North American AD carries. And that's fine if, say, you have a carry top laner. Their top laner is Balls. Balls is not a carry top laner. I don't think anyone would mistake the way that Balls is playing at this point in his career for someone that's going to single-handedly take over a game, the way that someone like, say, Flame would maybe take some damage away and some resources away from someone like Cody's son, whose damage per minute numbers are very similar to Alltech's. So without those same excuses, you're left with that caveat of, yeah, he just wasn't willing to engage. So I guess the key here, Walter, is going to come down to everyone's favorite narrative ever, High as the mastermind shot-calling genius.
No.
Can he rein in WildTurtle's worst tendencies?
Nope. That narrative is done and dead, boys, because High could not single-handedly shot-call this team into the finals, so I am hereby dubbing that narrative dead. Like, yeah, we can still say he's this fantastic shot caller, but we're not putting him at, like, godlike, Mata, Pawn, Dade, Dandy, like, Samsung level of, like, he's a god among shot callers. He can make water out of wine out of water. Oh. Like, no, I'm done with that. Nah, not at all.
Mata wouldn't have been able to win with that team either, right? Like, I mean, what so let's get deeper into that. Why do you think that deserves to be stripped from High? Why do you think that he can't be that figure that kind of gets the most out of a WildTurtle type player?
So the problem is they're just WildTurtle really shouldn't be the primary engager. Like, that shouldn't happen. As we're seeing, like, Ashe and Varus are shifting out of the meta. If you're watching any of the Demacia Cup, if you're watching any of the University of Legends, League of Legends tournament, like, it's going to Jinx and Caitlyn, and, like, you still get some Ashe, you still get some Varus, but, like, how do you be a primary engager on Jinx? Like, I guess you can flash forward and throw out the traps. And, like, you can do the same thing with Caitlyn, but at the same time, then you're a Caitlyn without flash that just threw this tiny little area of effect root that takes a second to arm and then also has to be stepped on. And if I'm an opposing top laner or a Lee Sin jungle, I'm just like, get over here. And then I'm gonna insect him. Like, it's just, you can't do that. And that's part of the problem is, like, Balls isn't a primary engager. We don't quite know what Moon is going to be like when we shift out of this super aggressive assassin meta. Like, he's not a great Lee Sin player. He's an okay Lee. His Rek'Sai is okay. Like, his like, what happens when we get him away from these super secondary carry damage champions? In all honesty, like, I think they're going to need to turn into more of, like, a lane kind of control team where they're going to just try and put pressure on one lane. I think it's mostly going to be bottom. I think that Lemon Nation and WildTurtle together as a tandem can be a very aggressive, pushing lane. You can, constantly be moving forward, constantly trying to catch out opposing teams. Sure, against someone like Stixxay and Aframu or Double Lift and Biofrost, you're not really going to be able to take advantage of them. But you can take advantage of some of these other weak AD carries, the Apollos, the Lods, not sneaky necessarily, but like some of those other weaker AD carries, you might be able to exploit them and try and build up a lead that way, and then let WildTurtle go wild, because he's a very good hyper carry kind of player when he doesn't get caught out. He is a very good Jinx player. That pentakill was on Kog'Maw, I believe. Caitlyn or Kog'Maw. That's where we're going back towards. And he is very mechanically talented. It is just these sort of brain fart moments where he's like, all right, I'm about to engage. So, we'll see what happens. I think that their kind of mindset is going to have to change. I don't think we're going to see anything super cheesy like Mordekaiser Nautilus spot lane. Oh God, please don't do that. But there's going to have to be a really fundamental mindset change in the team of balls can't just be I'm just going to, peel and I'm going to use my CC to try and control team fights and protect my carries. He's going to have to start actually engaging with dredge hooks and engaging with depth charges and engaging with I don't know what other top laners are going to be played, because I don't think he's a Kled player, and we're seeing a ton of Kled in Demacia Cup. So it'll be very interesting to see how this mid-season meta shift really affects Balls as a player.
Yeah, and this is something where, I think one of the narratives that really is going to permeate FlyQuest throughout this split is just how reliant they became as the season went on weird pocket picks. Up until their series against CLG, the only way that they had remained competitive in some of these best of 3 series in the second half of the season was to play things like Mordekaiser, was to play Shaco or Evelynn, or, all these different kind of off-kilter picks. And I love pocket picks. I will always be a fan of pocket picks in the right situation. Support Maokai isn't really one I'm going to be a huge fan of, but, it reminds me a lot.
Now it might be good.
I mean, maybe now I'm with the new rework. I'd have to think about it, but it reminds me a lot of one of the players I used to coach, Ravino, my mid laner. He loved coming up with weird ideas. He one time came up to me and asked me if he could play mid Evelynn in a scrim. And I was like, this sounds like the worst idea in the world. He's like, let me try it once in solo queue. He tried it. It was terrible. He's like, let me try it again. I'm like, no, actually go do something that will be valuable to the team, please. But I love that spirit. I love that as a general rule. I love bouncing off players like that. I love hearing the theory crafting. But at some point, this team is going to have to look within themselves and say, this is where the game is. This is where the meta is. These are the skills that we need to have if we are going to succeed. How do we get there? And that's the part that I haven't seen from FlyQuest, is when the meta turns against them. And right now, it's very much looking like it is. And that doesn't mean it won't come back, of course. But for right now, that's a genuine concern. How do they make the meta work for them? Are they going to keep trying to brute force these weird picks and just hope that they could be smarter than other teams? Or are they going to try to adapt? And if they are going to adapt, are Balls and Lemon Nation at this point in their career ready to do that on a mechanical basis? Is High, I mean, look, High's first half of the split was great, but is he going to be able to do that for a whole nother split? They're question marks, and they're question marks that I think are concerning to me when I think about how they're going to respond this split.
Listen, if teams are going to continually walk into High's Orianna ultimates and just clump together and let him hit 4-man Orianna ultimates like TSM did in some of the games in the regular season, High can still look like a god, but at the same time, I would just ban his Orianna and say, okay, how else are you going to make plays if you can't just throw a ball and ult? Salty TSM fan, sorry, I know some people are getting annoyed by that, but I just
Corky mid, please. Okay. He was great on that.
Yeah, he was great on Corky mid. That was probably his best champion, and then his Syndra and Orianna were after that. But look how quickly Corky fell out of the meta. It was 3 weeks and it was gone. And I get World Championships are going to come back and Corky is going to be back in the mid lane, but are we positive this team is going to make it to Worlds? Are we positive this team is going to make it to the semifinals of the playoffs? Are we positive this team is going to even make the playoffs?
Playoffs? I mean, that's
the question. Playoffs?
That's the question I'm asking you, Walter. Where does this team end up ultimately with all these concerns? And I do think they are fair concerns. Ultimately, where do they end up?
See, the problem is that the NA scene is just so muddy after the top two. Like, honestly, if you told me at the end of the split FlyQuest is third and wins the third, fourth place match, I wouldn't be surprised. If you tell me they're, seventh and they had a hard-fought match in their last series was against Dignitas, let's say, and it was Dignitas and FlyQuest, whoever wins that series makes it into the playoffs, and you tell me FlyQuest loses in a, tough-fought, 2-1 series that goes Dignitas' way, like, I could believe that too. You're not going to let me cop out, so I'm going to say 5th place. That is where I think they'll probably end up at the end of the split. 5th place. Yeah. I don't think they make the semifinals.
I have them as a 5th, 6th seed as well. I do think they're good enough to make the playoffs. I think for all the criticisms I made, they had moments where they looked really good. I think certainly the team synergy is there, and while High might not be the be-all, end-all that he may have been at certain points in his career, I think he does more than enough to put them in positions where they can win. I think a lot of it's just going to come down to how much do they have left in the tank to really make the most out of whatever opportunities the meta is going to present them with. Because there are going to be play styles that they are going to have to learn how to use and deal with that aren't in their comfort zone. And when you use a pocket pick all the time, it's no longer a pocket pick. It's just what you do. And teams can plan against it. And it's no one's going to get caught out by the fact that Moon's playing Evelynn anymore. So what do you got for us, guys? If you're not going to surprise us, we're going to have to see. But that's
everyone's waiting for the Shaco too. That's not I'm just going to go play Shaco. The only other stealth champion in the game, Twitch. Just saying, Moon. You play Twitch. You play the Rat. Then we might have something to talk about. I'd be intrigued by a little Twitch jungle.
Today I learned Rengar does not have stealth. Interesting. Well, anyway.
No, technically that's invisibility, isn't it?
I
forget how they coded everything. I just want to see Twitch in the jungle.
We're going to save that on the Riot Mechanics Semantics podcast. But until then, we're going to have to say that this has been a team-by-team preview podcast. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. We certainly had a lot of fun with it. I think FlyQuest is an interesting team, and you guys should let us know in the comments underneath what you think about our arguments here. Were we too harsh? Did you think we gave too much credit for certain things? Let us know. You can find me at RedShirtKing if you want to talk to me about anything I said directly. Walter, where can the people at home find you?
You guys can find me at Ceades_LOL, and I'm instituting a new rule for this summer split. Anyone who makes any High Moon jokes at my Twitter, at the Rough Drafts Twitter, or in the comment section of any one of our videos gets instantly blocked on all my accounts. Have a great summer, folks.
You heard here first. Boys, you know what to do now. I'm counting on you, denizens of the internet. And I'm counting on Riot. Counting on Riot to actually make sure that all of the things that we think are in the database now are finalized. So hopefully we'll have a whole bunch more episodes about NA and EU moving forward. So until then, goodbye, internet. So Walter, I felt like I had to tell you this, and it's been a very interesting sequence of events heading into this episode. If people are curious why maybe I was a little loopy during the FlyQuest bit, I was at work today. I'm currently working at a grocery store, for people who don't know, trying to get my hours in while I try to find a full-time job. And one of our customers did not remember to grab all of his bags. Left one bag out at the end of the row. So I went to chase after him. Now, there are two ways you can view this story. You can view the story through my lens or through the lens of everyone else in the store. So from my point of view, the value...
see run, Forrest, run.
It's exactly that. So I just see it and I'm like, I gotta go. I gotta catch that guy, because if it were me, I'd want someone running after me with my stuff. I wouldn't want to have to drive back at 10 o'clock at night trying to get to a safe way to get my groceries. So I'm charging through, and I get to the doors, and for whatever reason, they're not opening. And I don't know why they're not opening, but I gotta squeeze my way through Indiana Jones style through the little hole as it's closing behind me. And I get through, kind of, but I hear like a little banging behind me, and I hand the bag to the customer. He looks at me like he's confused, but he's very glad to have his bag. And I come back in, and everyone's looking at me like a crazy person, because for people that weren't high on an adrenaline rush, what they saw was a checker going into a full sprint. the doors opening very slightly, but not quickly enough, and me bursting through them like I'm a bat out of hell, just slamming through the doors, knocking them out of their holding. Now, luckily, they're meant to knock out because for fire codes, you have to be able to get out in case they stop working.
Yes.
But it made a very loud noise, apparently. And everyone was looking at me like, who the hell is that crazy dude? Like running through a door. Like he's just been like let through a barn and this is my one chance for survival. And everyone come back in. And my boss is looking at me like I'm just lost my goddamn mind. And the customer who I'm checking out just looks at me and says, promise me that you will treat my groceries the same way you just treated his. So I don't really know how to feel about the story. Proud, ashamed, I don't know. But I felt like the internet might want to know that Chase on adrenaline is nowhere near as coordinated as me without adrenaline. And as my sister once said, I have the reflexes of a dead cow. So you could just imagine this overweight, hurtling, whatever the hell you call me in that state of mind, just bursting through the sliding doors. But you know what?
That's bloody lovely.
The customer got his groceries. And isn't that really why we're all here at the end of the day? I mean, you're here to watch a YouTube video. Supposedly people who might be watching this, but
oh yeah, this is getting tacked right on at the end of the FlyQuest episode. This is beautiful. This is no, I mean metaphorically, I think we're all here to get groceries. But at the end of the day, I don't know what is groceries a metaphor for. I think that's the real question. What are groceries?
I mean, what is life really? But a process through which we eat groceries in order to survive, so that we can keep living, man.
Is like toilet paper technically groceries?
I mean, it can be if you.
Is that technically groceries if you get toilet paper from a grocery store?
I mean, yes, maybe.
Eat toilet paper. You want to eat toilet paper.
Man, I could not even pretend to care.
These are the important questions you expect us to answer on the Rough Drafts podcast. Are toilet paper groceries, and would you eat it?
Hard-hitting esports journalism, boys. Goodbye, Internet.
Hey there, Ceades here. Thanks for checking out the podcast. And if you enjoyed today's episode, consider supporting us at www.patreon.com/roughdraftspod. For just $1 a month, you can join your fellow listeners in our patron-only Discord channel and help keep the content coming, or join our VIP club where $1 a show or $8 a month gets you first priority on all patron content like our patron-only Q&As. And check us out on all of our social media, Twitter @RoughDraftsPod, Facebook.com/RoughDraftsPod, SoundCloud.com/esportsroughdrafts, as well as on iTunes and YouTube by just searching for the Rough Drafts podcast. Thanks for listening, and goodbye, Internet.